Advice for Grant Cardone. Uncle G. I love the work of Grant Cardone because he's like a master, almost like a spiritual master, a craftsman, an artisan. It's like he's using the tools of the trade to 10x his life and the lives of the people that he comes in contact with. So I want to talk briefly about some of the reasons behind his success and what he needs to do to get to the next level, in my opinion. So Grant Cardone says that money follows attention. So he built a great social network so that people know who he is. He pounds his network. He says he doesn't care if people leave his social media. People say that he tweets too much, but that, he only wants the people that, recognize the value. And that so he keeps pounding. He says, pound the list, or hit the list. Keep hitting the list. I remember that. So money does follow attention. He has a graph that shows that the line of his income, which is superimposed on, I believe, the line of his social media followers, and it's almost like a one-to-one direct correspondence. And as he got more reach, he says your greatest weakness is not that you are bad or incompetent. Your greatest weakness is that nobody is obscurity. He says obscurity is your greatest weakness, that nobody knows who you are. So the greatest, success factor, one of them in today's society of information overload, where attention is the greatest resource, is getting reach. So he's accomplished that. So he's way ahead of the game, ahead of most people. But then the second factor after that, after you have the reach, is how do you maximize the reach? How do you optimize the reach and make it the most beneficial for yourself and others? How do you provide the greatest value? So like some people like Gary Vaynerchuk and others, they've kind of mastered the scale of reach, which is difficult to do because most people are lost and can't get that reach. But for those few that really have the reach, then the question becomes, like, for example, Ninja. He has 14 million followers on Twitch. He just moved over to Mixer for an over $50 million contract for Microsoft. What's he going to do with that audience? Like, is he going to make movies? Is he going to make, branded products? Like, Kardashian, who does the youngest billionaire, I think, in the world, who did the cosmetic products, she took her name and she leveraged it. So how are you going to leverage, your audience? So I want to talk about that with Grant. So right now he's leveraging it, through several different ways. One is through democratizing real estate. So he's allowing people to be investors. He's got a $1.3 billion. I mean, that is great value, but I think he can even think bigger than that. I mean, that, so he's revolutionizing the real estate space, just like he did with the sales space, the car dealerships. He said he made $1 billion mistake focusing on trading rather than advertising. Yes and no. See, what it is like Rich Dad, Poor Dad, he came up with a new model so that people better understood what is missing. And he said, Grant Cardone said that people never understood that in sales, but you have to simplify it or find pictures or whatever you could do to have great concepts that people will adopt. Because if they're great concepts and they should be adopted, and Grant Cardone says they're not being adopted. So the second part of his thing beyond real estate, and I might talk a little bit more about the real estate if I have time in this podcast, but is kind of like his understanding about 10X and how to grow as a person and develop your skills. So he has books like 10X and, Sell or Be Sold. These are fantastic, fantastic books. I mean, they're on the order, kind of like with the ideas of almost like Think and Grow Rich, but they're a little bit amorphous. Like even a person like me that spent their whole life in self-help and written on this topic myself in terms of my books, it's a little bit between the lines. So I think Grant Cardone, my advice to you, sir, and I love what you do and I love the person that you are, is that you have to kind of like find a way to take your message and not necessarily simplify it, dumb it down, but make it so that, maybe it has taglines, key concepts, step 1, 2, 3, 4. When people really understand and are moved and are drawn to it because it's going over their heads. The reason why it's going over their heads is, like you said, you lost $1 billion opportunity in sales, and you're always talking about people are not picking up the message. Gary Vaynerchuk is saying the same thing. Part of it is that people are not perhaps able to take up the message, but part of it is the messenger. That the messenger has to be able to find a way to bridge where people are, their understanding and the value of the message. So my advice to you, Grant Cardone, is that you have the understanding, you've done it yourself. You just need to develop better bridges so that people can get to where you are. I mean, that's no easy task, but you've already accomplished so much by having the reach. Now you just have to maximize it. Now, in terms of real estate, it's the same kind of thing. Like, you've explained to people how you're making money in real estate, and people are listening, but you have to better be able to create a bridge for people to understand what the opportunities are at a deeper level and exactly what you're offering them so that they understand it better.